Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 47 of Parenting Autism Podcast. We hope all of you are doing well out there in the big world that we live in. And a shout out to our listeners all around the world. We have some listeners that are way out there, Sandy. And I don't mean like in outer space, but on the other side of the planet.
I know why you talk about outer space, because that's a hot topic in our house with Bryce.
Yes.
All things space. But yeah, we do have a lot of listeners, and I want to say thank you to all those who have reached out to us this week. We've had several people writing in with just thank yous to us for having the podcast and that they're getting things out of it, which is always encouraging for us. People writing in with questions. We're going to talk about some of that today, and just for different reasons that people reach out to us, and we're always so appreciative to know that people are listening.
Yeah, I mean, one that popped up on the radar in the last week, I had some stats come up, and we have a lot of listeners in the United Arab Emirates. So they're
out there.
Yeah, they must be a lot of...
Well, you know, autism is international. It's around the world.
It is.
And I can only imagine... Here we live, we're very fortunate that we live in the United States where resources, I would imagine, are much more plentiful than in other countries. So, you know, we're very blessed in that way. But thank God for things like this, like a podcast where we can reach out and be one of those resources, which is pretty cool to know.
Yeah, and I also want to mention Matthew, who wrote in on Twitter this past week. He says, hey, you guys were ranking so high on Google. I was surprised that, it's like crickets on Twitter.
Well, I don't even know how to use Twitter. So, and I do a lot of the social media with Facebook, and I do Instagram a little bit, but Instagram always, it cuts off my videos, which ticks me off. So I don't do Instagram very much. And I don't tweet at all. So that's not my thing. Yeah. But, if you want to take on tweeting, well, more power to you. But now,
tweet, that's about all the tweets I'm doing right now.
We're just trying to keep life simple and try to get in here every couple of weeks.
Most of our stuff is on our Facebook page, Parenting Autism.
Is. Yeah, that's where I go to the most. And that's worked out well because I use that personally the most. But yeah, we try to just get in here a couple times a week. No, we don't. A couple of times a month.
We would like to get in here a couple times a week.
We like to. Yeah. No, we get here a couple times a month, 2 or 3 times a month.
We're not busy or anything.
And share our story. I know, right? We kept saying, this past week, we kept saying, we got to do a podcast because this list is getting longer and longer and longer. So we do have things to talk about. So I suppose we should better start rolling into some stuff.
Okay, we better, yeah.
For us, I was telling you this morning, this time last year, we were preparing to send Bryce to kindergarten.
Yes.
And you're like, yeah, that was nerve-wracking, and it was. Mm-hmm. But this year, we're not dealing with all the school drama that all of our friends are dealing with because we're still in the homeschool mode, which we just did a whole podcast episode on that. And we're rolling through this whole summer, and Bryce is really, really enjoying first grade. And now that he has science, he's thrilled about science.
Yeah.
And so we just finished up our butterfly
project.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how to describe it. Experience. It was very, very cool. We probably released, 15 to 20 different monarchs, I would say, over this summer. And it was really neat. This past week, we had 8 in one day, and then we had 3 more the next day. But what was crazy was we had a hurricane that was supposed to be coming to our area. And so we had, I think it was 10 or 12 caterpillars that were already in their cocoons out in our thing. So we brought them inside the house to keep them safe from the storm. And then when we woke up Sunday, we had all these butterflies. So it was pretty neat. Between Sunday and Monday, we got those. And Bryce always enjoys releasing it. And we even invite friends over so they can participate in it.
Yes.
So it's just really been a great experience. And if you guys want to know more about that, I think it's a seasonal thing. It must be with the summer. Somebody tipped us, gave us tips about it. But we've shared videos on our Facebook page and stuff, and it really has been a nice summer highlight.
Long story short, you pick up some milkweed from your local nursery, and you can get like a laundry basket type of mesh cage, or we got one on Amazon that was made for butterflies. It zips open so that you can get the butterflies out, and you zip it closed so no other bugs can get in there. And it worked out great for us.
Yeah. And another thing we introduced Bryce to this past week was we got him a microscope because he's, again, very into science and learning.
Yes, and I learned that there's 2 types of microscopes.
Yeah, you did. So I don't know which one you landed him. You gave him, didn't you get the one that maybe he'll grow into it a little?
Yeah, it's like a camera microscope that you hook to your computer, and there's a compound microscope and a stereo microscope, and I keep mixing them up. But I think we got the stereo microscope that's for more of looking at larger objects, and the other type of microscope is like looking at germs and things, which I thought he would be more interested in looking at larger objects because we can go out in the backyard and we can go grab some things and look at it really close up under that type of microscope. And then maybe later on, he'll be more interested at the cell level, to see things.
Well, you mentioned germs, and I may have mentioned this in the last podcast because it's been a big topic around here. We're trying to explain to Bryce, about germs and washing his hands, and with the whole coronavirus thing. That's our part of, not that we go out much, but still he should wash his hands anyway, regardless. It's a great habit. And so he's all about germs, and the Curious George book about germs has become his favorite book. And so when you got the microscope, I know he really wanted to see germs.
Yeah.
But of course we couldn't really identify it. So we're like, all right, well, he put his finger underneath the microscope and there was a speck of dirt that was on his finger, which was perfect. So I'm like, oh, look at that germ. And in the book, they call him Toots and the Germettes. So he's like, oh, the look on his face, which I wish I was recording at that time because he was like, oh my goodness, his face was, he wasn't saying anything. It was like, you could see, oh wow, I am seeing germ on my finger. He immediately went to the bathroom. Yeah. We heard him in there washing it, and then he came out and said, Toot and the Germettes went down the drain.
And he came back over to the microscope and he put his finger under there.
Yeah, that part I recorded, so I caught him on the tail end of it, but it was really cute, and he got it, and that was good, because I think he just really wanted to see a germ, and that was the big thing for him, but... So that was a little highlight around here this week. And of course, we've had some friends over to play, which we're always so grateful for that. And, for those that your kids are, maybe younger, we really didn't try the social aspect and focus on it as much with Bryce until he's probably 5. And that's when we were recognizing, because first it's all about language. I mean, when you get this diagnosis, it's like you're just wanting your child to communicate with you, and to learn how to, whether it's verbally or however they're going to communicate. I think the focus goes there. And then at some point I don't say you, but I realized, wow, social is such a big part of this, because I think language is what you think first, the language deficit. And then I realized, wow, social is such a big, big part of this. So, it's been great that we can have some friends over now. Kids are going back to school, and even if they're going back virtually, I'm sure their schedules are changing tremendously and they won't be as flexible.
Yeah, and I want to just jump in there, and so much about autism is doing the right things at the right times.
Yeah.
So, for instance, his social, you're right. He did need to learn to communicate with us first using words. And he would always, early on, parallel play with kids, not really talk to them at all. And he didn't really have the language. And so many things, as they progress, they present opportunities. And so we know that he is ready for the social interaction now, so we're inviting other friends over to do that. And before, he probably wasn't ready for that stage,
Right.
The more we go through this thing called autism, the more I see, okay, he wasn't ready for that at that time, but he's ready for it now. and the light bulb goes off. You got to have certain skill level or, whatever level to do that certain thing.
That's really true. It's all about that timing, and it's your child's timing. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's all about when is Bryce ready? And even like toys or activities that we've had here for him, he's ready for some of those now. So I will go back through his closet and I will assess what do we have, and I'll bring things out, and what he really wasn't ready for a year ago, he's ready for now. Mm-hmm. And then some things I realize he's truly past that, and he's not going to go back to that, and that's okay. And so those can go so that we can make space for more toys. And I'm sure every parent deals with that.
Yeah.
But, it's all about that timing, because I've mentioned before, they have a recommended age on the box, but that doesn't always mean that it's that age that your child's going to be playing with that. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really matter. In fact, yesterday we took Bryce to a water park that's near our home, and it's a nice size one that we hadn't gone to before. And so we thought, again, this would be a good time for Bryce, because we just went through swim lessons. Mm-hmm. He's no longer afraid to get water on his face or to put his face under the water. And there's a lot of splashing at that water park.
And a lot of noise.
A lot of noise. So you had the sensory of the noise. You had this... They told me, my friend that we went with, she said it was about 50% capacity of what it normally is. And I'm thinking,
for us, it was
100. It was still pretty crowded for us. I mean, not like social distancing concern, but just for Bryce concern. There was a lot of people there. But he loved it. I mean, he really did enjoy it. And he didn't interact a lot, with the kids that were there, and particularly his friends. But he did enough, but he was comfortable and he did his own thing. Mm-hmm. And Bryce does follow people, which I've mentioned before. He does that at the playground. Well, you and I, we kind of sat back and observed and let him have his space and play yesterday while we watched from a safe distance. But I noticed he found one little boy that he didn't know, and he just kind of followed him, and then I don't know if the kid shook him off or what, but, get him off his trail. But one thing that I noticed was he came down one of the water slides, and there was a man that was in the water near him, and he had a different color shirt than you had on. But I don't know if Bryce just thought it was you, but I saw him kind of floating beside that guy as if it were you. Mm-hmm. And he followed him away from the slide and over to where that guy was meeting up with his wife and family. And Bryce was kind of there in between the man and the woman, and they're just looking, and I'm thinking they're probably wondering at this point, who is this kid and why has he joined our family? But, I gave him a moment, and then I think Bryce figured it out, and then he went back over to the water slide. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking in my mind, that is how he could so easily, if it was the wrong adult that he followed, we wouldn't see him again if we weren't right there on it, because he just wanders in that way. And I know in the autism world, they use the word elopement a lot. And it's not like he's trying to escape. He's not the type that's trying to just get away. I think he's the type that would just wander away unintentionally and could end up in the wrong spot and lost. Mm-hmm. That's how I think that he is. So we really have to keep close eyes on him when we go out in public. But it was a really good experience for him yesterday, and I'm glad we were able to do that.
It was fun, yep.
It was. So addressing some of the questions that have come in, I haven't told you what they are because, we like to keep it fresh on here. Yeah. So hopefully I won't stump you with anything. But it's really, people have written in and asked us some stuff. And I know we ask a lot of questions, and we still do, but we definitely ask a lot of questions when we began on this journey. And we've had people share with us. So again, what works for us may not work for the listeners, but we share, and we just hope that somebody gets something valuable out of it. Okay. So the first question that came in was, how did you communicate with Bryce when he didn't talk?
Well, you want me to answer these?
I want you to lead, because I kind of, I've already responded to these people, so I kind of know my answers fresh off my brain, but I thought I'd get yours and then chime in.
So I would say Bryce communicated to us more than we communicated to him. He would take us to where he wanted something.
Lead us by the hand or push us. But actually, he pushed us, didn't he?
He never really pointed, and that was a big deal when he was assessed. Does your child point? Well, nope. And to this day, he doesn't point.
Rarely.
So, I mean, he really doesn't need to, but whatever. So when he was nonverbal, that's kind of what it was, is what I remember.
Yeah, and I would say, how do we communicate with him? I mean, we did. We talked to him. We probably talked in shorter sentences. Yeah, it was very much broken English.
1 or 2 words we would use with him.
Because we didn't want to overwhelm him. Mm-hmm. So we did not speak in full sentences.
Right.
And then we used visual charts. Once we got him into his speech and language class, we started putting things around the house. In fact, I remember they were trying to teach him like what each room in the house represents, just to try to give him basic language to help us all communicate. And they took pictures, or I went around, they asked me to take pictures. So I took pictures of him in the bathroom, like in the tub, with his toys, to show that you go in the bathroom and brushing his teeth. So he would associate visually that you take a bath and you brush your teeth and you go potty in the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And then we had him in the kitchen doing certain things, and we had him in the bedroom. Or actually, I think you and I... we were the people in the pictures for some of the stuff. So Bryce would see us doing something in that particular room if I couldn't get him to do it. But that was one way I can remember going back to when he was 2 and we had lost all communication with him basically, because we had it at one point, but then he regressed. So I remember the pictures. I remember the visuals. I remember communicating. I know the broken English part. And I do remember like the very first thing that they were trying to teach him was for him to say, "Give me."
That's what sticks out in my mind.
Right? So they was just so he could express his needs or wants without pushing us to get what he wanted and reduce his frustration and the meltdowns. And so once he could get that, "Give me," and then if he could show us a picture or grab it and then eventually fill in those words for what he wanted. Give me water, give me food. Then we could ask questions.
Yeah, Rosie used that lollipop.
Yeah.
She stuck it in his mouth, took it out, and she said, "Give me." And she wouldn't give it back to him until he said it. And it took him,
She'd swirl it in his face and go, "Circle, circle, pop, pop."
Yeah. And then it took her, she was with him, an hour or 2?
Yeah, an hour.
And then she's like, "Okay, come on in." And she stuck it in his mouth and pulled it out. And she said, "Give me." And he said it.
He said, "Give me." And then after that, he really started using that with us and filling that in. I saw a video today on Facebook, one of those flashbacks. So it was 4 years ago. So Bryce would have been 2, almost 3 years old. And he said, you said, "What's your name?" And he says, "Bye." And you said, "How old are you?" And he says, 2. And I had wrote on there, "This is a big milestone for us. And some days, little things like this are giant steps for us." And 4 years ago, that was a big deal. He was looking, like eye contact and saying his name and saying his age. And that took us months
to get there.
You figure we started that in May, June, July, August. It took us 3 months to get to that.
How long would you say it was from when he was doing so good as a baby, naming all the letters of the alphabet and all that stuff? How long was it from the time he started losing his language to the bottom of that, like where
2 months
he couldn't communicate?
I'd say about 8 weeks, 2 months.
Yeah, it was that fast.
It was rapid fast. And I'm talking going from where we were concerned to where he cried if my parents became strangers to him and we lost all eye contact with him. Yeah. And until we got him into the language therapy and Rosie and her team started working with him, then we saw it gradually, but it was a very, very slow pace.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that we had to really keep encouraging each other, because we'd be like, "Oh, wow, are we seeing any difference?" But then you'd look back, because we recorded a lot, You know, it is handy having recorders on your phone. It really is. And you could go back and then we'd see, oh, wow, that's where he was 6 months ago. I guess he has really progressed, you know, and that would keep us encouraged. So, yeah, it was a tough journey getting that communication, but that's how we did it in those very, very early days when he was 2. Someone else wrote in and just shared with us that her family had a terrible incident at an airport traveling. And I think she really just needed a friend to vent to, which we're here for that as well. And it is terrible, you know, when something like that happens in a public place, and especially when you're trying to travel somewhere.
And you have deadlines.
And, you know, crowds and everything else that comes with that. I had mentioned to her, and I'll mention again, if anybody's going to be traveling anytime soon, we did a podcast episode number 13 about traveling, because I think Bryce was 4 at that time, and we were traveling up to Maryland for our nephew's wedding. And so you had done the research that we could get assistance through TSA. Actually, I take that back. We did not know on that trip.
Right.
We found out the next month when we were going to our niece's wedding in Michigan, because when we went to Maryland, we didn't know about any assistance we could have. And Bryce, we took him to the potty right before we got into the line. And in Baltimore, it's a long line.
Yeah.
Every airport's different, but it was long. So we took him, and then we got into the line, and we were probably in the middle of it. So it was a long ways to go.
He just went through the metal detector.
No, you did not get to the metal detector. No, we were in the middle of the line waiting to get to that, and he said he had to go potty. So you went up ahead without me to tell them, I need to get him through.
Yeah.
We'd already had our ID checked, so we were trapped in the middle.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I stayed my spot in the line.
Right.
You tried to hurry and get him out, but by the time you could get him to the bathroom, he had already wet all over himself.
Yeah.
His shoes, his socks, his clothes.
It was so traumatic for him. It was, daddy, potty. And there was like nothing I could do.
It was not good. And I guess at that time we didn't have him in pull-ups. He must have been potty trained at that time. So, you know, probably pretty fresh, but still no accidents during the day. So that wasn't a concern for us.
Sad moment.
So then it was like, well, what are we going to do for clothes? Because I've learned now to take extra clothes, but I did not have extra clothes then. So that's a tip for sure.
We didn't have, I think he went onto the plane barefoot. And
we found pajamas at a gift shop.
Right. We found the pants.
Pants and a shirt.
But again,
and commando.
No. Yeah, he was commando, and there was
and
no
shoes
socks,
and no socks.
Because he went all the way down into
We were
his
happy
shoes.
to find pajamas. And
so from then on, it was our mission. Okay, what can we do differently? We can't, you know, if we have to go somewhere through an airport, we just can't repeat that. That was bad.
Yeah.
So we found out about the TSA where they can help, and there's an 800 number you call.
Yeah, we got all the info there, and they basically will move you ahead to the front of the line.
You got to think about it. An airport is like another world. When you go through those doors to an airport, it's something that your child's never seen before. It's overload in every different way.
Well, and
there's conveyor belts that your luggage goes down. There's computers that you have to punch things in, and your luggage disappears into a black hole. Where does it go? You know, and then you're going through security. You got to go through this machine. I mean, it's best to watch some videos before you go to the airport and get acclimated. Yeah, if you can.
And I will say, like, we recently traveled to North Dakota, and Bryce flies like a boss now, thankfully.
He likes it.
He does enjoy it. I would still have the same concern if we were at a busy airport with a long line, that we would take advantage of having that assistance to get through the line faster.
Yeah.
But other than that, thankfully, I mean, again, he's a little bit older, so that helps as well. But
we can communicate better.
Yeah, so that's it. Someone else asked me about... In essence, they were asking me about a token system because we had mentioned it in a podcast. And so for us, and if you're not familiar with what we mean by a token system in the autism world, especially in ABA, you'll hear the words reinforcement a lot. And it's basically rewarding for behaviors, or if you can get a child to do what you want them to do for a period of time, then you
have the
give
carrot
them
at the end.
Yeah, have the carrot at the end. It's like us as adults. If we're going to go and work all week for an employer, we want a paycheck.
Right.
It's kind of like the same thing. If Bryce is going to work hard, what's his paycheck?
Right.
What's going to work? And just like if you're at your job and you don't get a raise, you lose your incentive. If there aren't increasing benefits, well, Bryce can get tired of the same reward as well. So if we go way back to the younger days when we were first introduced to this, it has been effective for him. I will say that. Bryce responds extremely well to positive reinforcement, much better than he does to negative, which we continue to learn that if we go negative, it just messes with his mind, and he wants he thinks everything is negative and that he's done something horrible and blah, blah, blah. So we try not to go there. We stay positive. It's good for Bryce. But so in the beginning, he had to do 5 things that his therapist or somebody wanted him to do, and then he would get to choose whatever his reward was.
On his break.
On his break, which would be like the iPad or whatever. And then when he got to preschool or VPK, we had talked about this before on a past episode, but his reward for making green choices all day was the car wash. And that worked extremely well with him. We got the monthly pass. Yeah. So it didn't cost us an arm and a leg.
If he did good in school that day and got a green smiley face, then we would go right from the school to the car wash.
Yes. And if his teacher gave us the red frowny face, she didn't like to do it, but it had to happen sometimes because Bryce is human and we wanted to keep it legit. You don't want to give him the reward if he's not really earning it because it loses
the impact.
The impact of it. Exactly. So, and on those days that he would get a red one, he would be very quiet in the car. He would be very sad. It would be a long drive home. But then we would just encourage him and say, hey, you get to try again tomorrow.
And it would give us an opportunity to re-explain why he didn't get the car wash and what he needed to do in school in order to get it.
How to turn it around and how to listen. So the car wash was definitely very impactful and helpful for a while. And then, as we've found on this journey, that once we do that with him for whatever we're trying to accomplish, we don't need it for a little while. But then if we start to see areas where he needs that again, we'll start something else.
Yeah, so like right now, he's all about the time. He's all about the clock. Okay, well, how long is Daddy's school? Okay, and then when is so-and-so coming over? And then blah, blah. So we're going back to a visual schedule. So visual schedule helps a lot in the autism world. If you don't have one, I would highly suggest Googling visual schedule, and that'll give you a better idea about what it is. But in our case, we're going to use different pictures that have Velcro on the back, and it's a schedule without time frames. And so the first picture might be him brushing his teeth. And then the next picture would be a picture of the shower. And then the next picture would be getting dressed. The next picture would be eating breakfast. So it's going to be a visual schedule with the steps of the day and in order of how things are going to happen.
And it's going to say to do at the top so he knows what he's going to be doing and what's to be done.
All the way up until the end of the day.
Bedtime. We're going big on this.
And because he's just super focused on the clock. And we're thankful he knows how to tell time now. But he's focused on it so much that he's not able to get things done. Yeah,
it's a complete distraction for him at school. So when you're trying to teach him, it's a major distraction. When his ABA team is working with him, it's another major distraction. I heard him this morning when he was with Mr. Tom for his music therapy, and he was talking about what he was going to be doing and how long it was going to be and what time. And Mr. Tom did a great job. And we hadn't clued him in as to the struggle we've been having lately, especially this week. But I heard Mr. Tom say, so I hear that you're thinking about this and this, but we're going to focus on doing the music right now. Okay. So it was like,
he did good.
He did. He turned him around but Bryce is really having a hard time staying focused. What's happening is he's so focused on what's to come that he can't stay present where he is. Mm-hmm. So, and it's not like he's even trying to get out of what he's doing. It just goes with his anxiety that he has as well. And he just needs to know I think what he's afraid of is he knows if, let's just say that Miss Melanie is coming to work with him at 3:00 and you're doing school and it's after 2:00 now. He's so worried that you're not going to be done before it's time for his next thing that he can't even focus on where he's at to finish. I think that's really it. And that's just one example, but that we could fill in the blanks with everything we do all day. Yeah. That's it. He's so focused on what's next. He's worried he's not going to be able to do that on time.
If you have an ABA tech, they can help you put together a visual schedule.
They can. And if you don't, because I know a lot of people don't have access to that, you can reach out to us and we'll send you pictures of what we're using with Bryce right now. And there's also like tutorials that you can Google and stuff that can help. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the token system, the reward system. Another thing we're using with Bryce right now, and I've mentioned before though, is we've introduced him to the concept of chores. And basically we're doing that. So, well, one, we use it for life skills, not to clean our house, but to keep him on task and on focus. And he knows that he can buy one game a week, which is one video game, which is a big deal for him. And so I know you're using that in school as well, which Miss Melanie had recommended. Just, again, to keep him off the clock, but to keep him on a reward, give him a penny for this, a penny for that. So, for Bryce, money works right now. It's really money that he knows he's going to be able to buy the game. So we can't stress enough, if you can figure out what the current rate of reward and motivator is, that's the direction to go with that. There was another question that came in. Did it take a while for Bryce to learn how to write with a marker or a pencil?
Okay, so Bryce, I think we went over this in the homeschool episode, but he doesn't like to write. He doesn't like to color. He doesn't really like to paint. So he doesn't have that artistic side of him, but we did have a lot of trouble getting him to write letters because of his pressure with the pencil. He didn't have enough pencil pressure, so he would write really lightly, and it wouldn't be straight lines. It would just, kind of be squiggly lines, and he was having a super difficult time with that. So I tried the little pencil modifier. You stick it on the pencil, the different grips. So Amazon has a package of different grips you can buy. Probably it has a half a dozen grips in one package, different styles. So we tried different styles of grips, and I found one in the package that he seemed to take to, and it helps him form that tripod grip on the pencil so that he can write better. So there's different steps to the pencil grip. So if you're just starting out in this, sometimes in the very beginning stages, the child will grasp the pencil like a fist, and that's toward the very beginning of writing. So they grasp crayons and pencils just like with a fist, and it's very sloppy writing, sloppy coloring. And you eventually want to get to that tripod grip on the pencil, and those little things helped me get the grasp that I wanted. And also we needed to do hand strengthening. So we got him this zip line, and extracurricular activities will help with this. So the zip line, he has to hold on to the rope tightly when he goes and does his zip line. Not everybody's going to have a zip line, obviously. We got it on Amazon, and we run it between two trees in our backyard, and it works out great for him. But also things like riding a bike, gripping the handlebars. He's using that hand strength to grip the handlebars. So anything or throwing a ball, anything that you can get into their hands that they will play with and get that strength,
So create a grip in some way.
That helps with the pressure. So what we ended up doing after I got those grips from Amazon was we implemented the Handwriting Without Tears program. And that's been really good for us because I was winging it before then. I was like, okay, well, here's the letters and let's write them. Well, there's a process to writing each letter. And the Handwriting Without Tears really helped me describe to Bryce how you start a small letter A in the shape of a C. And then you go up, and then you come back down, and you bump the bottom line with the A. So they use different terminology with making the letters, which really translated well to Bryce when I was describing how to make the letters. So with all of that together, his penmanship or pencilmanship has come a long way. In that he can copy a sentence now. He's doing really well. We're still working on the lowercase letters because it does take a long time. The program takes a long time. They don't want you to rush and try to do all the letters at one time. They really want you to concentrate on each letter individually until they master it.
Question.
Yes.
Are there some letters that they deem to be easier to write than other letters that you should start with?
And they group those letters together. I can't think of the letter groups off the top of my head.
Because I just thought that would be helpful, because if you're trying to make them write the more difficult letters first, obviously if you knew what was easier.
Right. Well, we start with capital letters, and then there was a group of capital letters. I can't remember which ones, but that you start with. So in the case of a capital letter B, you have a line down, and then you start back at the top. You jump to the top of the B, and then you do a small curve to the middle and a small curve to the bottom. And in the book, and the kit comes with the curves and a little chalkboard. We started with the chalkboard, actually, writing on this little chalkboard that they give you. So
you think that's easier?
It is easier, and it gives the child resistance using the chalk. So they have to put a little more oomph in it to get the chalk to write the letter on the little chalkboard that they give you. I
remember when we got him the chalkboard a couple years ago.
And it helps contain the letters, too, so you can't write the letters too big. But it's a really great program. I recommend it. It's probably a little pricey. We ended up probably getting more things in the kit that we needed. Like there's this little map man that you build and a little sing-along. Well, he didn't like the sing-along, so we didn't do the CD. But the chalkboard was really helpful. The wooden letter pieces were really helpful because it's just basically straight pieces of wood and curved pieces of wood, and you put those together to make letters. So first they get the concept of letter making with the wood pieces, and then you move to the chalkboard, and then you move to paper. So it is a long process, but it's worked out good for us.
So do you think Bryce had a preference? Like, I mean, was it easier for him to use a crayon at first before you went to pencil? Or do you think the chalk? I remember, I'm asking the question just trying to help listeners, maybe for ideas, especially when he was younger, because he's, at 6 now. But I can remember when he was 3, I know they started working on his grip and OT when he was 2, trying to help him with that, with writing. And it's always been a struggle for him. But remember the crayons that were like triangle shaped? Because they thought that might be easier than round.
Yeah, there's some crayons that have a triangle grip. I don't think that helped
him, but it might help somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would help him hold the crayon better, but he was never interested in crayons.
It's just because he's not crafty.
He didn't like coloring. Yeah. So we never really even did crayons. We went from the wood pieces to the chalkboard to the pencil and paper. Yeah.
So I guess the advice would just be try different things. And also for this particular parent, she was saying that she's got like a dry erase board, and we did that with Bryce as well. He liked the dry erase board. So it's, again, you're trying different forms different, what would be the word I would be?
Different ways.
Yeah, let's just go with that. Different ways of using, of writing, and try them out.
A lot of these whiteboards will have the chalkboard on the backside, and I've also heard that if you use the chalkboard standing up vertically and the whiteboard vertically, that it helps them put more pressure on it instead of having it on a tabletop.
Yeah.
It's a little harder for them to write on it when it's straight up and down, which is good because you want that resistance. You want that, use all those muscles to write on that board vertically instead of making it super easy on the tabletop.
Very good. All right. Yep. So hopefully that will give some tips out there that will help.
Mm-hmm.
And another question that came up was, how did we deal with Bryce with excessive hand washing? And when that question came up, my mind went back to a couple years ago, again, age 4, I'm going to say, was when we were dealing with this. It wasn't so much the hand washing, but he liked having excessive squirts of soap. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And we would have to, tell him you can't have more than, I think we started with 3 squirts.
Mm-hmm.
Then we narrowed it down to 2 squirts, and then we got him down to 1 squirt.
Yeah.
And then you had even said, well, if he can't do that, we'll just switch to a bar of soap. Take away the squirt if that's the only pleasure. But, I think, my answer was we dealt with the phenomenon of liquid soap coming out of this thing. Bryce is all mechanical, so it's like squirt. It wasn't about the water,
If we had an endless supply of liquid soap, he could pump as long as he wanted.
Right.
But you know what? There's only so much soap you can fit in the bottle.
Yeah, and I think that's why he would want to wash his hands everywhere we went. He would be like, oh, let me wash my hands. I remember we took him for his open house at the VPK. He beelined right to the bathroom. Oh, they have squirt soap. Okay, I'm going to wash my hands.
He likes turning the water on and off.
Yeah, and I was, good point.
The whole sensory thing.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to help share is it's not just about, you could say excessive hand washing. Okay, well, you got to break it down. So that's a really good breakdown there because I think when you're in the middle of this and your child is constantly doing it, all you can think of is why in the world do they keep washing their hands? And now we have sanitizer in this world that's everywhere. So another opportunity to pump. So I think it is the pumping of the soap. I remember that specifically for Bryce, but you're right. It's also about the water and the control of turning it on and turning it off and hearing that sound and watching the water come in
and listen
and out. So it's sensory related.
Yeah. And if you have a nonverbal child who will not go into a public bathroom, but he's fine in your bathroom, the things you need to think about is, okay, well, why won't he go in the public bathroom? Well, one reason might be because of the dryers, the electric hand dryers.
Still can't stand those, but
right.
Yes,
they're
the hand dryer.
loud and out of control. They're unpredictable because you don't know when somebody's going to hit the button. So if you have a child that can't communicate with you but has a problem with public bathrooms, that could be the reason why, But going back to the soap thing, you could make also a visual schedule of washing your hands, or you can watch a video or make your own video of washing your hands. I remember early on watching videos for Bryce was good for him because it gave him concepts. So, first you turn the water on. That'll be your first picture of turning the water on. And then 1 pump of the soap. That will be your next picture. Put 1 pump or 1 squirt. Write it out with the picture. And then,
And then you have to put a timer on it because Bryce has always responded well to timers as well. So you could either set a time or, if your child can count even to 5.
Well, they say 20 seconds is what you want.
But I'm just, whatever you
whatever
work with what
whatever
you
you can get, yes.
Yes. The point being, if you can get them to know that they can only do it for so much time, and if it's 5 seconds, great.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they got to be cut off at a certain time. Or set a timer that, okay, we're going to do it. With Bryce, we make timers like a game as well. And then that gets him highly motivated, at least right now.
It's exciting.
It's exciting for him. So we've got the timer on the shower now because kind of the same thing. He's not washing his hands excessively, but he will stay in that shower for a really long time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think it's just because he gets distracted and he's thinking about other things, not because he doesn't know what to do or how to finish.
He just spaces out.
Yeah, who knows what he's thinking about. So you put the timer in this week, and he knew if he got done within the allotted amount of time before the timer bells rings, he had to get out, he had to dry himself off all by himself and then get dressed, and then he would get his reward for that.
Yeah, so one thing about that is putting a timer on my phone wasn't effective because he would just space out and he would forget about the timer being on. So we came up with this idea, well, let's try an old style kitchen timer that goes tick, 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 tick.
You can hear it.
So he's standing in the shower, and then he spaces out, and then he comes back to earth and he hears the ticking sound. Yeah. He's like, oh, the timer's still there. So it reminds him that he has to keep going.
Isn't that great? I mean, it's like these little tools that you don't realize that, that's what we needed. And it's made a world of difference this week. The kid has gotten out of the shower in a timely fashion every day.
Yes, we just hope that it lasts.
I know, because, Yeah. But hey, we'll ride this as long as we can. Yep. That's exactly it. So anyway, those were some of the questions that come in. I've been jotting them down as they're coming in and things we could talk about.
One other thing I wanted to mention about homeschool, getting back to that with this past week, we just started first grade in June and we're doing it all year round. And I forgot how it came up now, but he told me he didn't want to do reading eggs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why don't you want to do reading eggs?
I do know how that came up. If I can share. Yeah. So he's doing FaceTime with his little friend Michael. And so we're trying to work on communication there and conversations. And so when Michael asked him, "How was your school today?" and Bryce said, It was okay, just a little bad.
That's right.
And I said, and then I told you what he said, that school was okay, just a little bad. Mm-hmm. And then you said, what was a little bad about Daddy's school today? And he said, reading eggs.
Yeah.
So then you ask him why.
Yeah, why? What was it about reading eggs that was bad? He said, it's too loud. And I don't believe it's volume loudness. I believe it's unexpected music and other types of sounds that particular program makes that puts him on edge. So he's finally been able to tell me this. So we've been doing it since September, and I've been using reading eggs and time for learning together as a combined curriculum. The reading eggs was more to reinforce what time for learning was teaching him. So I said, you know what? That's okay. We're going to take reading eggs off and we're going to do time for learning. And that's going to work out good anyway, because there's some other things that I wanted to incorporate, like Bible, reading more about the Bible and a couple other little things, geography maybe.
Yeah, I know he likes all that.
So time for learning does language arts and math in first grade. And then I think in second grade, they include social studies. But in any case, they don't have a Bible class, but we want to put that in there. But now we're not doing reading eggs, so that opens up that opportunity.
But isn't that, I mean, it's really great that we were able to figure that out. Mm-hmm. But it really took extra effort on our part as his parents to figure that out, because Bryce did not directly come out and say, I don't like doing reading eggs.
He never...
Because, it's too loud.
Right.
He doesn't do that. He does not come... any other child would be saying, I don't want to do that. Or they'd say, I don't like that class. And then you could ask why. Bryce never did. And you said you've been doing this since September, and we're in August now.
Yeah.
So it took him almost a year. Had I not picked up on him saying to his friend... It was okay, because I know he loves school, but when he says it was a little bad,
right?
You can't ignore
we don't want it to
that
be
he
a little
said
bad.
It's a little bad.
Right.
And I really didn't know what I had no idea what that meant. I just knew that that's odd. I've never heard him ever say anything negative about doing daddy's school. Mm-hmm. So he put that little bad out there. And of course, his friend Michael doesn't know to say, oh, what was a little bad about it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But how wonderful that he can at least start a conversation with someone that we can take these clues, ask more questions, and he's able to give us answers.
Yeah. I mean, we want school to be as fun as possible and least restrictive, and because we want him to want to learn, and he does, and he's soaking it up. And
he is. He's loving it. So speaking of his, kind of goes with his secret language, or Bryce says things that we don't understand, and we're always trying to crack his codes. But he does this thing with me, and he's done it for a while now, but I hope it doesn't come off too ear piercing in here. But he'll go, pounce, pounce, pounce.
Yeah.
Right? And he'll come up and he'll kiss on me, and then he'll be like, pounce, pounce, pounce. Right? It gets like that
where
high
did
pounce.
he even get the word
so
pounce?
I'm like, are you pouncing on me? Yes, and then he'll
Yeah.
tell me again, and he does. I mean, he's been doing this for a while now,
Yeah.
and I know it's like when he comes and he's loving on me. But last night you said to him, what does pounce mean? And he says, I love you. Oh, so all this time in Bryce's way, he's been telling me, I love you.
Yeah.
And it's so
precious,
cool and so sweet as we're learning these things about him.
Yeah.
And I will say too that Bryce is just becoming more funny all the time. You're always saying like, oh, we have to tell your mom and dad that, because he does and says the funniest things, and we're really seeing his little personality come into form. Mm-hmm. And Bryce is going to be someone that is not going to let you get by with anything.
Right.
He's as honest and pure as the day is long, which we love about him.
Yep.
He has this game he likes to play that's called What Should You Do? And he wants to play it with anyone and everyone that is breathing and will participate with him.
It's the game of consequences.
Yeah, it's really been good for him, for learning. So we were at Mom and Dad's playing, and so he was playing with me and you and Mama. And it can be a long game.
Especially with the more players you have, the longer the game is. So it was the four of us playing.
Yeah, so you were trying to bypass a little bit. And
move it a little along.
So you're like, oh, you can take 10 steps. Bryce like, let me see that.
That's not what that says.
That is an incorrect answer. It says, and then he'll read because he can read cards now. He was calling us out on everything. It was
It only says move ahead 2, Daddy. Okay.
Oh, it was so good. I know you had to be there for the pure
Your mom
funny
was
moment.
falling on the floor laughing.
Because it's just great. I mean, we're loving that he's able to tell us all this, and it's just the way he says it too. I mean, he is just calling you out. Don't you cheat in this game is basically what he's saying. Yeah. Although we've seen him try to cheat on his games, we're like, but he's not going to let anybody else cheat. So it's so funny. But just other things that he does, again, I'm sure everyone has their funny moments. But for us, there's just so much laughter in this house. He's funny. That's the key, laughing. He's quirky. Do whatever you can to laugh. Yeah, it's good. Things are really good. So I really don't have much more here. I think we've probably chatted enough for one day, don't you think? Yeah. Yeah, I think everything is good. And thank you for your time. And for those who found us the first time, we say welcome. For those who keep coming back, we say thank you so much. Mm-hmm. And we hope that you found something positive in this. Keep reaching out to us. We really do enjoy it when we hear from you. Yeah, we're here. When we're able to help in some way, or again, if you just need to vent because you need someone who gets it, we get it. So it's all good. So we hope you have a great week. And I'm sure we'll have more things we'll be adding to our list to chat about next time. Until next time. See ya. See ya.